make a huge difference to people's lives.
I don't think anybody's doubting there are good officers and that there are forces that are more functional than others. But this report makes no bones about it, does it? That too often, in too many cases, undesirable people are becoming police officers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Zoe Bingham, she was spot on when she said that the vetting process does need to be tougher. We need to be looking into people that are applying and making sure that they're applying for the right reasons. I remember being asked, a lot of questions around why it is I'm applying to become a police officer, what is it that motivates me, different scenarios around, how would I respond to this different situations, to check that, I'm doing it for the right reasons. And yes, the pay and the conditions are poor. It's not keeping up with living standards. We all get that, but you don't join the police to make a lot of money. You join it to help people. It's a vocation. It's that sense of achievement when you catch the offender and you're able to call up your victim and tell them, we've got this person and we've got charges for them. They're going to court. We're going to do our utmost to get justice for you, and also to safeguard the public as well from these dangerous criminals. And it's working on jobs, county lines and that cause absolute blight on society, getting involved in those sorts of investigations as well, and the impact that can have is absolutely huge. And those types of investigations, they cross all across the organisation, right from your neighbourhood policing officers, PCSOs, to CID, to more specialists.
But it's also the reason you want incorruptible officers, isn't it? To not start getting chummy with the likes of county lines gangs. Thank you very much, Simon, for the work that you do, and thanks for your call, Simon in Northampton. Ben has called from York, probably our last caller. Ben, hello there.
Hello there, thanks for having me on, Sheila.
Pleasure.
I'm calling to sort of make a comment on the vetting process, really. Long story short, when I was 13, I was in trouble with the police for indecent exposure, through basically doing what young boys do in their bedroom. Didn't wish to cause anyone any trouble, and that was it when I was 13 years old. Subsequently joined the fire service as an on-call firefighter, and through witnessing many deaths through road traffic collisions, I decided that I wanted to join a special constable and volunteer to give my time, so that I could actually try and prevent this sort of things happening. However, because of that issue when I was 13, I was outright declined. And it seemed to be a simple black and white. If you've got a tick in the boxes that you've been in trouble, you're automatically a bad person.
Or if you've got a tattoo.
Yeah, or you've never been caught, as many people haven't. Or, among criminals, you're automatically a good person, so therefore we'll let you in.
I mean, there's not much the police can do about that, though, is there? If somebody is secretive and doesn't...
It's that thing of, but you have one issue, so automatically you're intrinsically a bad person, and you can never be a good policeman.
And when you applied to be a paramedic,
yes.
was that presumably there were safeguarding and
there was,
vetting?
Yeah. So it was a simple thing of, it comes up in your DBS, inform them of what happened, we literally a 5-minute conversation, then we'll go to your breakdown and make something of your life. And that was it. And then now, I'm actually in a position where I'm in a specialised unit that actually sits in briefings where counter-terrorism police are about to go and raid a building. And we sit there amongst all these police officers receiving the same information that they do, with no issues whatsoever.
And dealing with people in the most vulnerable moments as well in your job. Really interesting. It's interesting what's come out here, isn't it, in these last couple of hours, that minor criminal convictions, or relatively minor criminal convictions in some cases, have absolutely precluded somebody from becoming a police officer, but in Ben's case not from becoming a paramedic. That seems rather contrary to me. Thanks very much, Ben, for your call. That's it for me. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Global Player, where you'll also find all of LBC's shows to catch up on, as well as Global's live radio stations. Download Global Player for free from your app store, or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 6 on LBC, it's Andrew Marr, but now Tom Swarbrick.
Sheila, thank you very much indeed. It's afternoon all. Welcome to the show. At 4 o'clock,
the danger to the public, of course, is that you've got people who shouldn't be police officers.
ex-convicts, sexual abusers and those with links to gang crime are serving in the police.
if you're going to take people who've got a, shall we say, a checkered past, you've probably got to put some measures in place to make sure that they're properly monitored, and they just weren't.
A report finds it is far too easy for the wrong people to get into forces across the country. Examples include a man who robbed an 80-year-old woman and another man who exposed himself to the same woman on 7 occasions. There is a rush on to recruit more officers, but no rush required to recruit the wrong people. How is it happening? Why is it happening? And is there any role in the police for those who do have a criminal record?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 4 o'clock, the Prime Minister insists the government is getting a grip of the asylum system despite it being a serious problem. Rishi Sunak admitted not enough claims are being processed during today's Prime Minister's questions. Sir Keir Starmer criticised the Conservatives for failing to resolve the issue despite being in power for 12 years. But the Prime Minister hit out at Labour's record on the migrant crisis.
Border control is a serious, complex issue. And not only does the party opposite not have a plan, they have opposed every single measure we have taken to solve the problem. You can't attack a plan if you don't have a plan.
Rishi Sunak has made his first U-turn as Prime Minister, announcing he will attend COP27 next week. He'd faced backlash after originally saying he wouldn't go to the climate summit in Egypt to focus on domestic issues. But the Prime Minister now says he wants to deliver on the legacy from the last one in Glasgow. Climate activist Lauren MacDonald has told us it's vital he's there.
Rishi Sunak has rightfully faced immense criticism. The UK needs to take responsibility for the climate crisis as one of the top 5 historical emitters of CO2 since the Industrial Revolution. So to sit out of these negotiations would be to ignore that responsibility.
2 police officers have each been jailed for 12 weeks for sending grossly offensive messages to Sarah Everard's killer. 35-year-old Metropolitan Police Constable Jonathan Cobburn and former PC Joel Borders, who's 46, will serve half of their sentences. They were found guilty of sharing racist, homophobic, misogynistic and ableist messages in a WhatsApp group with Wayne Couzens. The Home Secretary says culture and standards in the police needs to change following a damning report released earlier. Suella Braverman has responded to a police watchdog's findings that hundreds of corrupt officers could be serving in England and Wales. And the Bank of England is expected to unveil the biggest interest rate rise since the 1980s on Thursday as it tries to control inflation. Experts predict a rise of 0.75 percentage point to 3%, the highest since 2008. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 32 points at 71.54. The pound buys $1.14 and €1.16. LBC weather: heavy rain for central and southern England tonight. Blustery showers in the northwest, especially in Scotland. Lows of 5. Rain lingering in the southeast tomorrow. Brighter for the rest of the UK with sharp showers in the west. Highs of 13 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cogs.
This is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Just gone 4. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Tom Swarbrick at Drive here on LBC. Hope we find you well. Coming up.
It would have been a remarkable own goal for the Prime Minister to miss COP27.
Own goal avoided. Rishi Sunak will now attend the COP27 summit in Egypt, but as one university offers a course to help students with something called eco-anxiety, do you despair at the scale of the challenge? Should you be despairing? We'll discuss.
Plus, he and his Conservative allies have won 61 seats, just enough to form a majority coalition in the 120-seat Knesset. Boy, that's big news, folks.
If you thought our politics was bonkers, let me introduce you to Israel, where previously ousted Benjamin Netanyahu may be about to become Prime Minister again. Details to come.
Call 0345 60 60 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Very good afternoon. afternoon to you. In the aftermath of Sarah Everard's murder by a serving police officer, the then Met Commissioner Cressida Dick said this about those who serve in the force. I have 44,000 people working in the Met. Sadly, some of them are abused at home, for example, and sadly, on occasion, I have a bad 'un. We are intolerant and we set ourselves high standards in how we work to identify and tackle and prevent any such behaviours. Fast forward 18 months and after a whole raft of incidents that demonstrate that the bad uns are not merely occasional but pretty common, we now have a better picture of just how many bad uns are on the thin blue line in the ranks of those who are meant to protect and serve. A report that surveyed 11,000 officers found hundreds were given jobs who shouldn't be anywhere near the police. The review found officers passed the application process despite having criminal records, being suspected of serious offences, having substantial debts, or having family linked to organised crime. Of the 131 vetting cases that the report raised concerns about, it said 68 of the officers should never have been allowed in at all. In the other 63, the report understood why police forces might have taken them on, but they said they needed special supervision and monitoring, which didn't happen. There was one candidate who was linked to drugs, guns, burglary and violent robbery, a man who had received a final warning for robbery after knocking an 80-year-old woman to the ground and stealing her handbag. There in the police, a man who exposed himself to the same woman on 7 separate occasions, was convicted of indecent exposure when he was a juvenile. 6 years later, in the mid-90s, the same man received an adult caution for making threats to commit criminal damage. There in the police. A police officer who faced allegations over a number of years of improper sexualised touching of a member of the public and junior officers was successfully transferred to another force based on the grounds that the transferee would make the force more diverse. There are obviously serious questions here about how the hell any of this happened, and if you're involved in police recruitment, if you've gone through that process yourself or a family member has, how haphazard, how slapdash actually is it? Was this human error, or are these recruits actually symptomatic of policing in Britain which has, to your mind, lost its way? I'll never forget this call I took on the old late night show from a chap who said that they were out running one day. They'd gone for their morning jog. They rounded a corner and found a police officer in uniform, resting on the hood of their police car, smoking a spliff, which is unbelievable and so brazen. There are clearly, there's a big recruitment drive in the police force right now. They need to attract 40,000 applicants in the next year to replace officers who leave, as well as attracting 1,800 new starters. So they're having to get people through the system and onto the books pretty quickly. But that doesn't really explain how it is that so many people who shouldn't be anywhere near a police officer rank manage to get in. 0345 6060 973. 7 minutes past 4. Susanna Fish is a former Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire Police who made misogyny a hate crime. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. What do you think this report says about the standards of policing?
Good afternoon. I think what this report says is that it is in a dire state, that the first defence of policing, which is in terms of protecting the public, is vetting, and that has failed spectacularly. The levels of inconsistency and perverse decision-making and lack of explanation on decision-making, if you read the report as I have done, I would like to say beggars belief, but sadly it's something that I struggled with through the latter part of my career, and I've been talking about this for some considerable time, as indeed have other people who've both served us in the police and have been on the receiving end of inappropriate or criminal conduct by the police.
When you said you struggled with it through the latter part, what specifically was the it?
I think the entrenched misogyny, I would add racism, homophobia, to that, aspects of the police culture that made it incredibly defensive, in denial, and so speaking out, as I am today, is the ultimate sin. It's that disloyalty
But that, do you not think that was, sorry to cut across you, Susanna, but that, I think, it was absolutely on display from the former Met Police Chief Commissioner, Cressida Dick, saying, I've got, and on occasion, a bad one. If the former commissioner of the Metropolitan Police was not aware of what you say was rife and in your face all the time, particularly as a female police officer, I mean, what an embarrassment.
It's worse than that, because it's lives that are devastated, families that are torn apart because of this, careers ended, lives ended. When I was in Nottinghamshire Police, we identified that sexual misconduct was highly prevalent, and we took a range of, at the time, really radical steps to address this. I was told by other senior officers across the country, what on earth are you picking up those stones for? Focus on burglary and car crime, that's far more important. But this for me is, and always was, a fundamental issue of trust, of confidence and legitimacy in policing. And good police officers, of which there are thousands, will be devastated by this report, and will feel, quite rightly, really angry that they've been failed and compromised. But also, this report shares the experience of so many, sadly, women in the service, both officers and support staff, who have been abused horrifically by their colleagues.
How has this happened?
I think the culture of denial and defensiveness allows it to. I think it's quite complex. So it's aspects of the culture which is sort of hyper-masculine, very sexualized, a lot of conversation about sexual prowess in a very heterosexual sort of way.
So it's the chat in the pub between blokes that gets transferred into the police station?
Yeah, I don't think it really transferred, it just is.
Right.
And I think it's probably some of the worst type of behaviour. I'm no prude, I'm no sort of shrinking violet, but it's basic, putting it mildly. And again, when women come forward and say, this is what's happened, they're the ones then that are investigated, they're victimised, they're ostracised, they're isolated, and often they lose their career. They lose the things that are really important. They lose their mental health, for goodness sake. They lose everything quite often, whereas the perpetrator gets away with it. And again, it's graphically described in this report by Matt Parr, in terms of a whole range of examples of appalling decisions. And of course, if your risky behaviour, if you like, of being a little flirty, which then becomes more harassing, that then becomes physical, that then becomes criminal, because it's never checked, and there's no sanction if for anyone. And in fact, quite a lot seem to get promoted.
And that's, as you say, in the job. And there are people who are getting into the job who already literally have criminal records for, in this case, exposing themselves to women in public places, which is just absolutely unbelievable that they were not checked, picked up on, and then denied access to the police force. I just wonder, Susanna, whether that attitude that you describe, very male, sort of beyond bawdy, how that translates and represents itself to members of the public, particularly women who make allegations of sexual assault. We've seen very, very low charging rates for rape, very low convictions for rape. To what extent do you think that attitude on display from some police officers leads to a failure to investigate claims of sexual assault by women?
Undoubtedly, it has a very strong relationship. And I know that policing over recent years has invested a huge amount of time in making sure that approach to dealing with women reporting such crimes is much better. However, there are some well-documented examples of officers who have been subject to gross misconduct against their female colleagues, who now head public protection units. So how can the public, and particularly women who are vulnerable because of the nature of crime and incidents that have been perpetrated against them, have confidence reporting when they should have. They should have every confidence, and there is no, the reason why they don't, is incredibly well explained in today's report.
Just finally, in a sentence, do you think there is any role for someone who has a criminal record for them to work in the police?
No.
At all? Any criminal record at all?
No.
Very good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. Susanna Fish, former Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire Police, who made misogyny a hate crime. You're listening to LBC. Let me bring you this piece of breaking news. 2 Metropolitan Police officers have been sentenced to 3 months in prison after sharing racist, homophobic, misogynistic and ableist messages in a WhatsApp group with Wayne Couzens. He, of course, the man who murdered Sarah Everard. They've been bailed ahead of an appeal. This is PC Jonathan Cobban. Former PC Joel Borders were members of a chat called Bottle and Stoppers on WhatsApp with Wayne Couzens. Westminster Magistrates Court heard how they joked about raping a female colleague, talked about tasering children and people with disabilities, and displayed racist views in the group in 2019. So that is 2 Met Police officers sentenced to 3 months in prison. 0345 6060 973 on how this situation has been allowed to develop, how, in your experience, bad it actually is if you work in the police or you've gone through that recruitment process. And just picking up on what Susanna said there in her very, very direct and clear answer about my question of whether or not people who do have a criminal record should have some role within the police. 0345 6060 973. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC 416.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M25 clockwise from junction 23 for the A1M to junction 25 for Enfield after 2 separate breakdowns earlier on, but all the lanes are open now. It's very slow on the M4 going into town from just after Heston services to junction 1, the Chiswick roundabout because of the roadworks. In Acton on the A40 Western Avenue, the traffic lights at Savoy Circus aren't working. That means there are queues heading into town from Hanger Lane and going out of town from the northern roundabouts. There are queues in Wandsworth on the A3 West Hill in both directions at the South Circular. That's because of roadworks, and it's very slow on the A23 Streatham High Road in both directions around Glen Eagle Road. That's after a bus broke down earlier on, but all the lanes are open now.
This is LBC.
Some things leave you guessing, like, why are yawns contagious? But not MailChimp. MailChimp eliminates guesswork from email marketing by analysing data from billions of emails to offer up personalised recommendations for how to improve your email content and targeting. Guess less and sell more with Intuit MailChimp.
Call Tom Swarbrick 0345 6060 973. This is LBC.
Join me, Andrew Castle, here on LBC. What about construction? What about hospitality and other areas where there is a vast worker shortage? If we are to grow the economy, we need more people. But you can't just keep on adding people. You've got to increase the amount that somebody produces, increase the average amount that each person contributes. That's really growing the economy.
Andrew Castle.
With Smart Energy GB. Get a smart meter installed at no extra charge.
LBC.
Hello there, it's the Hairy Bikers here, and we are here to help you. Yes, you listeners, to get more from your food.
We are indeed more character, more delight, and more flavour.
Yeah, and we know a proper tasty way to do it. With Knorr, of course, the nation's favourite stock.
That's right, so whether it's a chicken or chickpea comforting curry,
or a hearty beef or bean chili for dinner tonight,
just be sure you give it more with Knorr.
To verify, call 0800 731 1411.
With O2, you can get the Samsung Galaxy S22 from $36.44 a month when you trade in a Samsung Galaxy and claim a £200 prepaid MasterCard. That's a new pair of wellies, cashmere sweater and one of those big flasks to keep your brew warm. Whatever you want to spend your £200 prepaid MasterCard on this winter is up to you. Search O2 Samsung S22.
Plus RPI plus 3.9% prepaid MasterCard issued by GVS Prepaid Limited. Claim by email and SMS within 30 days and 2nd of November. 18 plus credit checks, eligibility and terms apply. See o2.co.uk/terms.
Serious Tissues. Carbon neutral toilet roll. Planting trees instead of cutting them down. Subscribe today for 10% off and free shipping at serioustissues.com.
Some people think the metaverse will only be virtual. But did you know that surgeons will be able to practice complex operations virtually? before treating patients in real hospitals. And using virtual reality, school students will travel back in time to deepen their understanding of history firsthand. The metaverse may be virtual, but impact helping to build the metaverse at meta.com/impact/EM.
Do your teeth stop you from smiling and eating? Do you hate the thought of false teeth? Talk to TDC about Smile in a Day dental implants. TDC Smile in a Day dental implants look and work just like real teeth. So eat what you want and smile when you want.
I just wish I'd gone to TDC years ago.
Let TDC restore your teeth and your smile. Book your consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
Hello, small business owners. Are you aware the HMRC VAT online portal is now closed forever? And you must use MTD compliant software for your VAT returns? Don't worry, with QuickBooks we can help get you started with our free 45-minute onboarding session for all new customers. Search QuickBooks now. Exclusions apply.
Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
4:20 at the time. Afternoon to you. Very interesting hearing Susanna Fish, the former Chief Constable, on the programme earlier, talking about the attitude that she came across, faced daily as a Chief Constable, of rampant misogyny, of that kind of horrific lad culture stuff that gets thrown around the pub after a few beers, as opposed to in work when you're dealing with vulnerable people, and in particular when you're dealing with the most serious of sexual offences, mainly committed by men to women, in a culture that is male dominated and that is misogynistic. If you're listening to that and you have to, God forbid, or you have already had to, go to the police with a complaint of a sexual assault, as a woman, I wonder how you respond to what you're hearing about the attitude that exists within many police forces up and down the country from particularly men about you. Susanna Fish saying the attitude of those men, those male police officers, to your complaint about a serious sexual assault might mean that it's not taken forward, might mean that it's not dealt with seriously, might mean that you never actually get the justice that you're ultimately owed because of their attitude to you. That is absolutely appalling. 0345 6060 973. Tom's a new caller from Lambeth to kick us off. Hi, Tom.
Hello, hi.
You've worked within the police?
Yes, I am, yeah.
So tell me about your experience of that.
I mean, I don't know whether my call is fit for your discussion title or not. But, the thing is that I've been in the UK a long time now. I came from a third world country, not going to name the country's name.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my higher education, my undergraduate, all from universities here. So I hold 2 masters. That's as far as I can tell. And then eventually I've been recruited one of the police force in United Kingdom. Obvious reason I'm not going to tell which force is that.
Mm-hmm.
During my selection process, I was successfully selected and then went through the training. And in training time, I have realized that I need more polishing on my written skills, the written stuff. Because obviously English is not my native language, it is my second language. And after my master's, I've been quite a long time. I was working in some other sector which doesn't require too much writing, so my skill was deteriorated at that time. Unfortunately, I haven't got any help from the police force. They passed me through successfully, attached me to a station. And my experience was really horrendous that time. The system. I mean, I was not supported in any way.
And when you say it was horrendous, Tom, describe in what way it was horrendous.
The system is like when you were recruited as a new officer, there is another officer who was assigned to you. It's a kind of your tutor, so you need to go with him 10 weeks, and you need to do certain things, and he's gonna tick your boxes. So my tutor was a white guy, and he was absolutely horrendous. Oh my God! I had a sleepless night just because of him. Because you understand, working as a police officer, I have the passion to serve my community, helping the victims. That itself is a big pressure.
But Tom, he was sorry to cut across you, but you were having sleepless nights about the mentor that you were assigned to because he was bruising, because he was aggressive, because he was what?
He was. I would say he was racist to me. He was. He's an acting police officer. I was acting police officer at that time. He swore at me in my cruiser. He made me cry in the station.
He made you cry in the station?
Yeah. And I haven't got any help really from myself. Eventually, the HR or department was involved, and then what did they just basically cover their side, you know.
And you're someone who wants to be in the police. You know, you're there trying to do the job because you have the passion too, and you think it's a good use of your time, and you want to do it. And you're being reduced to tears by your mentor because of the racism that you say he was imparting in your direction. It's absolutely horrendous. Tom, thank you so much for the call. We were battling with the line towards the end there. And he's on the same team. You know, it's never justified. But that's a guy who's trying to do the job and to get in and get on and get up in the police force. So no wonder people are turning away from those jobs. Forget the pay and the stress, because the pay's not great and the stress is absolutely enormous. The conditions that you find yourself working in, if you're not sleeping and you're crying your eyes out, and I'm not particularly touchy-feely about this kind of thing. There are going to be moments when you're probably going to get shouted at, and you're probably going to get an earful if you're not doing it right, and it's high stress, and you know those kinds of situations do happen. But there's no excuse for that. Mark's in Durham. Hi, Mark.
Good evening, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm Tom. You're Mark. And you've got a chirruping phone. Fire away.
My apologies there. So I'm a serving police officer. I've got around 7.5 years in now. I just wanted to raise a point for the LBC listeners so they know one thing here, which is that 4 out of 5 police officers that are removed from the service are removed on the reports of other police officers. So only 1 in 5 police officers that are actively removed comes from an independent complaint from a member of the public. I think people misunderstand that the amount of good officers out there that don't want misogyny, don't want racism, as opposed to any sort of criminal conduct or anything similar to those lines, that are willing to turn colleagues in that will speak to their professional standards departments, that will speak to their anti-corruption teams. It's right, and we do our best in terms of police officers to make sure that our colleagues that we work with can be trusted, not only for members of the public, but so that when we're out there dealing with people, we know that we can trust the people stood next to us.
But how is that now? When you get assigned a colleague for the day or whatever it is, Mark, and you go, do you feel like, I know I can trust this person?
Yes, and in that line of life, you have to take things on face value. You have to work with somebody, get used to them, and quite often, if someone is inappropriate, if someone does hold beliefs that aren't in line with yours, aren't in line with those that should be in the police service, they're not going to openly turn around and say it to you. They're not going to openly or in public make those views known. It's only over time, and it's the courage and conviction of the officers that get to know these people. Sometimes they're friends, colleagues of decades worth of service, that are removed for having those opinions.
Do you, Mark, think that you would be able to trust your colleague alongside you to have your back and to do the right thing by members of the public too, if that colleague had, in the past, a criminal conviction?
Yes, and I think what we have to consider here is context. Because criminal conviction now, don't get me wrong, if someone's been previously convicted of a serious criminal offence, an indictable offence, a robbery, burglary, rape, something like that, no, it should never ever be a police officer, not in a month or some days. Or if you have a member of the public who applies and they've previously had a drunken disorder conviction, a public order conviction, are we saying that person that swore once or urinated in an alleyway and been caught by a police officer isn't worthy? I think context plays a large part.
I don't disagree, and I think actually You're absolutely right on the context, and that, as I understand it, is in the policing guidelines for recruitment. You can have, as a kid, done something a bit stupid that didn't require a custodial sentence and still join the police based on your explanation of those events or what have you. And I wonder whether that might make policing better if you've understood the criminal justice system from a little bit inside it. Clearly, if you've gone to prison, there's no way you can serve in the police. Mark, thank you for the call. Talking of police officers going to prison, let's bring you more on the breaking news this afternoon that a serving Met Police constable and a former officer have been sentenced to 12 weeks in prison for sharing highly offensive messages in a WhatsApp group. LBC reporter Christian Hugill is outside Westminster Magistrates Court. Christian.
Tom, both Jonathan Cobban, who's 35, and the former PC, Joel Borders, who's 45, won't go straight to prison as an appeal's being lodged. These men shared messages in the same WhatsApp group as Wayne Couzens, Sarah Everard's killer. In comments on the 5th of April 2019, Cobban and Borders swapped messages about tasering animals, children and disabled people. 20 days later, Borders joked about a female colleague. He used language which the judge, Sarah Tunnock, described as misogynistic and aggressive in its nature. She called the comments of the men abhorrent. Now, the court heard that the two men were remorseful about the messages. However, the judge point-blank refused that claim, saying their not guilty plea proved this, as had some of their comments in the case where they'd said that their comments in the WhatsApp groups had been taken out of context and blown out of proportion. That, Judge Tunnock said, was the most concerning thing about this, and that the two men, several years on, were still not showing appropriate remorse. The judge said these sexist, racist and homophobic messages were not only offensive to individuals who they were aimed at, but also to wider groups of society, such as disabled people, for example. At one stage, she said she couldn't think of more offensive messages about the very people these men were supposed to protect, and that they contributed to a culture where these views, even though they were expressed as an example of dark humour or banter, could, in fact, be normalised. The men will spend 6 of the 12-week sentence behind bars and the rest on licence if the appeal is unsuccessful. No date for that appeal has been set yet.
Christian, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. LBC's Christian Hugill outside Westminster Magistrates Court. I've got a full board of callers who are Fred, Albert, Adam, Doug, James and Tony. You can tell that there's a lot of guys ringing in to talk about policing. Given the fact that one element of this story, a big element of this story, is the attitude of male police officers to women, I'd love you to ring in and tell me whether you are feeling that as a woman in your interactions with particularly male police officers. 0345 6060 973. Comes your calls in just a moment. And after the news...
I have represented hundreds of victims and I have seen very, very few false claims that somebody is raising that they are a victim of slavery.
The government is set to speed up the process of deporting Albanian migrants, many of whom claim they are victims of modern slavery. Details after this. 4:32 news headlines now. Amelia Cox.
2 police officers have been sentenced to 3 months in jail after sharing offensive messages with Sarah Everard's killer. They were discovered after Wayne Couzens kidnapped, raped and murdered the 33-year-old last year. The Prime Minister has urged chief constables to take action after a report found serious failures in vetting officers and staff. A watchdog has found hundreds, if not thousands, of corrupt officers may be serving in England and Wales. And Sir Keir Starmer has accused the government of breaking the asylum system, saying the Conservatives need to get a grip. The Prime Minister says the migrant crisis is a serious and escalating problem, but they are taking significant steps. LBC weather, heavy rain for central and southern England tonight, blustery showers in the northwest, especially in Scotland, lows of 5 degrees.
LBC, Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7.
Robert Jenrick, who's a Conservative MP and Immigration Minister, a senior Home Office figure, believes migrants being detained at these camps rather than moved to hotels nearby is because a lot of the areas around there in Kent are Conservative supporting areas. Might that be accurate?
No. The people who live in Kent have faced a huge burden as a result of illegal migration. We are working to try to disperse individuals across the whole of the United Kingdom so that this burden is borne fairly. There's no politics in that.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
You tucked up in bed, and you hear thunder. A distant storm. It's quite peaceful when you're safe and dry. Except, if you listen closer, that's not thunder. That's somebody waving a sheet of metal.
Sorry.
Sometimes it pays to be skeptical. Pension scammers work hard to sound authentic, to make what you hear feel real, even though it's not. If you receive a cold call offering you a pension review, it could be a scam. Always check who you're dealing with. Don't let a scammer enjoy your retirement. Search Scam Smart.
Hello, small business owners. Are you aware the HMRC VAT online portal is now closed forever and you must use MTD compliant software for your VAT returns? Don't worry, with QuickBooks we can help get you started with our free 45-minute onboarding session for all new customers. Search QuickBooks now. Exclusions apply.
At Intrepid Travel, we believe the best way to see a big world like ours is with a small group, like one of ours. With over 900 fabulous adventures to choose from, we think you'll agree. And because our emphasis is on socially conscious travel and having been carbon neutral since 2010, seeing the Earth with Intrepid Travel won't cost the Earth. Visit intrepidtravel.com and see where it takes you. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back. For good. Excludes flights to and from destinations.
If you've lost £3,000 or more in a scam or fraud, then tell CEL. CELsolicitors.co.uk specialise in confidential, no-win, no-fee fraud and scam recovery. So if you started a relationship online and were tricked into sending them money, you could have been scammed. Don't let them get away with it. Let us help you try to get your money back. So, CEL. We listen, we care, we win.
At Tesco Mobile this Christmas, you can get the incredible iPhone 13 with AirPods Pro. This magical duo includes 5G for high-quality streaming to watch all your favourite Christmas movies for just $36.99 a month with club card prices, saving you £270. This is Supermarket Mobile. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 28th of December. Was $44.49. Club card and 36-month credit agreement required. Subject to status and availability. 5G subject to coverage. Terms at tescomobile.com/terms.
With O2, you can get the Samsung Galaxy S22 from $36.44.